just in neutral without breaking the clutches loose. I hope.
Daddy.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Are you Bryson?
Bryson.
High five.
High five.
Knuckle bump. Wiggles. Wiggles. All right, go play. Good afternoon, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We're gonna turbocharge this here Harley Davidson. We have dropped videos for that. Make sure you do a big like, make sure you do a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, because I'm about to hook you up, all right? I'm gonna hook you up. Like everybody in the world that's had a problem with the Harley Davidsons, I'm sure you've been on the forums or you tried and you got impatient or whatever, and you did all your research, even on YouTube, trying to find out what's wrong with the bike or what problem you may be having. I'm going to give you the video that answers all of this, at least in my perspective. I don't know if this will work for everybody. I'm certainly going to try because I've been on dozens of forums, read hours of information. There are no videos on YouTube that answer this directly for me, and a lot of it's also just common sense, or it's terrible video quality, or the person doesn't narrate it that good. That being said, a slow start issue. This is a 2011 Harley Nightster. If you are not on my channel and you are not subscribed, you probably don't know this. This is a 1200 model, Power Commander 5, and intake, you know, little caps everywhere, whatever. We were having a slow start. For a 2011 motorcycle or 2009 motorcycle, any fuel injected model, basically 07 and up, you should not have this issue, not with newer bikes. A lot of people say it's the battery. A lot of people say it's the starter contacts. A lot of people say it's the relays. You can test your relay in 5 seconds just by swapping out the starter and the system relay. If your fuel pump kicks on, your system relay is working. If your starter kicks over, your starter relay is working. You can swap them out to test each other just using your starter slot. Usually that's not the case, but in some cases on the forums I've seen where slow starts, not running bikes, crappily running bikes, all kinds of funky problems, even fuel pressure issues came from a bad system relay or a failing system relay. Mine were fine. I checked those. This all, when I say slow start, I'm going to throw this in the beginning of the video too. On the compression stroke, it's like, what the? What? And then you'll have to stop and you'll need... I got a lithium ion battery to kind of band-aid this problem because they will recycle and they will come back stronger a certain amount of times, not over and over again all day long. But the bike itself, this bike was killing AGM batteries, literally killing them. So I could have a full charge from a few hours ride and I get the Tom Thumb and try to start it on the compression stroke, and before I knew about the problem and was familiar with it, I just try to start it. I just try to get it and wouldn't realize what was going on, didn't think about the compression stroke, didn't think about your clutches sitting down in there and the fluid being all locked up from sitting for 5 minutes, for 5 hours, whatever the case is. So I would basically drown out my AGM batteries trying to get the bike started if it was having a bad day. I would get lucky if it was off the compression stroke, the bike would start up. It was a little weak, but still, for 2011, it shouldn't be a what, or you shouldn't be fighting compression strokes. You shouldn't be fighting the clutch baskets being stuck together. It just isn't a thing. When people went to see these bikes at the dealership, they didn't do this brand new off the lot. So, I wanted to start with the starter contacts because I'd already fiddled with a few of the other miscellaneous things like the relays, checking wires, grounds, whatever. The ground was the issue, actually. We'll get to that. So I never wanted to mess with... I put it off for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. I did not want to try to take the starter out. Obviously, it's a lot of work. So I actually just moved my hoses around and stuff. And I was able to take the back cap from my starter off. And I was able to pull the contacts out, get them sanded down. I actually used a Dremel very lightly and was able to get the pitching and the arc welded residue pitches away and out of the pieces. I only did that because after looking them up online, it was very I'm not going to drop the F-bomb. It was very effing annoying because you can't just buy a starter rebuild kit for the Nightster. You can either buy the whole kit, which you don't need. Like, all my O-rings were good. Everything was good except the contacts were worn. I didn't need new hardware. I didn't need a whole bunch of crap. I didn't need a $50 kit. So I also took it out and found out that one of my contacts was shaped differently. So this one up top is pretty generic. It's just like a square piece with an angle in it, obviously. The one on the bottom actually is bolted in, and then it comes out this way. And a lot of the starter contact rebuilds don't have that. They have two of the universal contacts, which wouldn't work for this. I couldn't even find a kit for the starter that actually had the proper contact in it. And I definitely couldn't, I could only buy it by itself. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna sand them down, send it, and see what happens. I finally took the patience, took it all apart. I did the ground wires, cleaned them off a good bit, all the wires going to the starter, and that did not solve the problem. Cleaned the contacts, perfect, started over just like I did before. My friend advised me not to just sand down my contacts because it could create unlevel arcing and electrical connection and cause more issues or be worse than it was. It's not. So I did that. That didn't work. After I got it all put back together, my harness from all up in here to right in here was just a mess, so I consolidated it all. This plug was like way down here, bulged up, so I put it up here and tucked it away. Everything's a lot better. It's not the finished product. I'm gonna tuck it some more, but for right now it works. But my coil pack plug came loose, so when I started it back up the first time from doing the starter contacts, it was running on one cylinder out of nowhere. Never did that before. I was lost. Did all kinds of troubleshooting for the longest time. And what I ended up doing was saving the ground wire for last. I've got this in because I don't have my plate on it right now, but I need to put my plate back on. It's in there. Actually, I put that there so it could hold my plugs on here because my holders are broken on the back side of the plugs. So don't judge my painter's tape. That being said, the ground wire that goes from the battery here in the back, which I did not want to do this because it looked excessive. There is a nut right there. See that post right there? That's the ground wire that comes from the battery, and it snakes up and through there. It's not hard to get out once you have it off the battery and once you have this side loose. Getting this side loose is a pain, that's for sure. But I did get it done. I pulled that off and ended up not seeing corrosion, but it's all gray from weathering. And you could see on the top of the ground wire where my bolt, the actual nut has indentions on the bottom of its surface, kind of like cleats or like prongs. You could see each indention where the copper was showing from those cleats, but that was the only copper you could see. So I redid that entire ground wire, pulled it out, resurfaced it. The whole thing looked copper all the way around, beautiful as can be, put it back on the nut. And at first I didn't want to pull it out because you would think that since it's nut on nut and not to a straight metal surface or casing surface, that it's not going to create corrosion and stuff like that. But it did. I don't know if I want to call what I got off of their corrosion. I would call it more weathering, just like a car from sitting under a tree for 5 months, whatever. Pulled that out, sanded that down, was actually doing that to get rid of the mist because I still didn't know what the mist was. Got that put back together, didn't change anything. At this time, I had been running my battery so low I couldn't even get it started anymore. And I ended up having to take Champion plugs out, which I can't believe Champion plugs were in it. It's got NGKRs in it now. But once we found out the plug scenario and we got that zip tied, once if I've only rolled my bike in first gear, well, I'll put it in first gear and pull the clutch in and I'll roll the bike. I'll break it loose because it's kind of locked in place. When you're breaking it loose, you're separating the clutches because they stick together in the fluid. So I rolled the bike forward, broke the clutches loose, had it in neutral, and it kicked over like a champ. Kicked over like it should have, and that was with a low battery. Now I crunk over, got it running, had to jump it off a car, rode it to Kevin's house, had about 2 bars of battery. The Harley Davidson lithium-ion battery, it has a test button, and it will literally show you what the charge is. Right now I'm full charge, and this bike's been sitting for 2 days, which is awesome. Before, with my other batteries, they would be low from trying to start it at Tom Thumb or hitting the compression stroke, whatever the case is. So I'm saying ground wire. It is definitely the ground wire from the battery to the frame because I saved that for last because I didn't want to do that work. And after pulling it apart and being fed up with my bike being down for like a week and my new luxurious seat came in the process, yeah, I was pretty pissed off. I wanted to ride the bike. So we found out the coil issue. And after that, it started up just fine. Right, I just got done editing the video, so it's dark out, but I'm gonna go attempt to start the bike for the first time since I've done the fix without rolling it, without breaking the clutches loose, just starting it like it is in first gear and see what happens. And then if we fail at that, we'll do the neutral, roll it in first thing. But I wanted to explain it before I go try it, because I've been kind of curious and it's home, so why not before I get stranded trying to figure it out in the city somewhere. It's in neutral. I'm going to put it in first gear. Alright, it's in first gear. Alright, still a little rough in first gear. So it's kicking the bike forward too much. I'm going to bring it back into neutral since it's kicking the bike too much. So now this is just in neutral without breaking the clutches loose. So what do we know with that? It was for the first time I could test it knowing that it'll start up properly because I've done the fixes. In first gear, I might actually even need to adjust my clutch. My clutch may not even be adjusted properly at the base. And that's while taking the casing of the engine off. Possibly need to just adjust the clutch, which is behind here, because it's kicking the bike forward pretty good while I'm in first gear trying to start it, which is where that lug you heard was. As soon as I go into neutral without having to break the clutches loose, starts up like a champ. Just want to throw this in here really quick. And we'll finish the video, because this is after the video is already done. And so I hope this answers a lot of questions for you. You're going to get a lot of information online. This may not be your solve. It could be a system relay. I'm calling that it's not, because the funny thing is even my relays are in rough shape. I'm going to pull this off, and like this one has a crack in the side of it, a little crack, and this one's just old and tattered, and I pulled them out like 9 times, so the casing's just rough, but they still operate perfectly fine. So the ooh, that's a good question. No, because then you'll be promoted to take stuff in there that produces trash, and that's not the rules. I'm doing a video for the Harley. Anyways, I hope this helped you out. I know there's a lot of moto vloggers out there who have a really big following, and I've noticed a lot of their videos they do is helpful stuff like this, so I like to give back and try to when I can. That being said, if this did help you, give it a big like, give it a big thumbs up, make sure you subscribe. If you have any other questions, hit me up in the comments. My channel's not so big that it's hard to keep up with them all, so I hope.
Daddy.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Can you say bye?
Bye.
Who are you?
Are you?
Bryson? Are you Bryson?
Bryson.
High five.
High five.
Knuckle bump. Wiggles. Wiggles. All right, go play. Anyway, we're almost to our goal. I mentioned the turbo. We've already got a Mini Cooper turbo for this bike, so make sure you watch those videos if you're interested in that. We're gonna probably have this thing boosted by next month. And who knows, if I hit my goal of subscribers, I may just end up giving the intake and the Vance and Hines pipes away if anybody's interested in that. So make sure you give it a subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button. I guess we will see you next time, and thanks for watching. Toodaloo.